Okay, next up, as I said, I've had Leslie Nobile, who's our responsible for doing global registry knowledge. That's looking at the whole number registry system. I've had her doing some work on Whois Accuracy. I'd like her to present some of those findings they might find of interest to the community here. Come on up, Leslie.
Right. Okay. Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to talk about Whois Accuracy, the importance of Whois Accuracy, what we mean by accurate Whois. We actually have a definition in here. And then talk about some of the things that ARIN is doing to obtain and maintain accurate Whois data. I also have several slides with data talking about our POCs and our orgs, the state of our database. And actually, some of the information in here will inform later policy discussions from this afternoon, so I'm very happy that I'm speaking before those policy discussions because they may be useful this afternoon. So, what is accurate Whois data? This is a definition we've sort of bandied about, me and some of my colleagues, and we think it is comprehensive, correct, and current. Comprehensive data means that all the data that is required is registered and complete. All fields are filled in, everything you expect to see in the record is there. By correct, we mean that the data has actually been verified by staff as being correct. In the ARIN region, we do vetting of all organizations that get entered into the database. So we're looking to make sure that the information they're giving us is actually accurate. They're actually registered companies. They're giving us valid emails and mailing addresses. And then the data is current, and by that we mean it's been confirmed to be up to date or it has been recently updated. So when we're looking at old legacy records that may not have been updated, the last updated date in Whois shows in 1996, that is not current. So we sort of doubt the validity of the data. It could be accurate, but there's no way for us to know. So why is accurate Whois data important? What does it mean to all of you as part of the internet community? Well, it's extremely important for internet operability and stability. It helps network operators identify other network operators to resolve technical and or abuse issues. This was one of its original purposes. The registry is to hold unique identifiers, but it is so that network operators can find other network operators. It is very important from a public safety perspective. It is used by law enforcement globally, quite honestly, in law enforcement investigations and to identify the responsible party to serve process. So that would be, in the US, it would be court orders and subpoenas. So they're looking for someone who has access to that customer, somebody they can serve process to get more information about. Quite honestly, it is really important from the perspective of protecting number resources from hijackings. We have found in the ARIN region that the stale records, the old records, the ones that don't get updated, are the first ones that are targeted by the hijackers. That's where they start. They look for the last updated date and they go for it, and then they start checking routing, et cetera, et cetera. So they are always targeting the stale or inaccurate data. From a RAR perspective, this is one of the key responsibilities of the RARs. This is written into RFC 7020, which is the successor RFC to 2050, which was one of the original ones we used at the establishment, the time of establishing ARIN. And it says, a core requirement of the Internet Numbers Registry System is to maintain a registry of allocations to ensure uniqueness and to provide accurate registration information of those allocations in order to meet a variety of operational requirements. So for us, this is Bible. This is stuff that we should be doing. And then from a contractual perspective, contractual requirement perspective, ARIN's Registration Services Agreement has a couple of sections in there that talk about accurate data, and it is required. If you sign ARIN's RSA, you are required to keep your data accurate and current. So these are just some of the main reasons that it is important. So I just sort of threw this in there. Could IPv4 depletion affect data accuracy? I would say yes, and these are kind of the reasons. Under current policy, ISPs are required to register their reassignments in Whois, and that's a /29 and larger for IPv4 reassignments and a /48 and larger IPv6 reassignments. So there's no longer any IPv4 address space in the free pool, and we don't see many ISPs or customers coming to us for IPv4 address space. And it's likely that they're not as motivated to continue to register and or maintain their customer data. One of our hammers essentially was when an ISP came for additional space, we would verify that all of their reassignments were in the database. And now that they're not coming to us, we have no way of knowing whether they're in there or not, because we're not proactively looking for them. We don't have the resources to do that. And on the flip side, with IPv6, once an ISP gets a block, they may never have to come back to ARIN for more space because those blocks are so large. And so they're not coming, and therefore staff is not checking their reassignments. So they, again, may feel less motivated to register and or maintain their V6 customer reassignments. So that's a big chunk of data that might not be getting in there or might not be maintained by the upstream ISP. So we think that new ideas and approaches might be needed to keep the data from degrading over time, and that's something that I'm working on for John, as he mentioned. This is one of my prime reasons for being. So, what is ARIN currently doing to obtain and maintain accurate data? So I looked at it from 3 different perspectives. From a policy perspective, what policies tell us we have to do that? From a business practice perspective, what does ARIN do on their own as a business practice to ensure accurate data? And then from a contractual perspective, what does the RSA say? So from a policy perspective, we have 2 policies that address accurate data. We have the annual POC validation, in which ARIN staff sends out an email to every single registered POC in the database asking them to validate their data. So they just have an option to just hit validate, or they can go in through their ARIN Online account and update their data. The second policy that we have was the one I just mentioned, the reassignment information, and it's in 2 different sections, one for IPv4 and one for IPv6, and that was required ISPs to put all of their customer reassignment information into the database. So those really are the only 2 policies that talk about accurate data or putting data into the database. From a business practice perspective, so we made some changes early on when we were being hijacked right and left by people. They were hijacking legacy space, and we sort of caught on and said, oh, well, we can't let this happen. So we started putting all kinds of security measures in to prevent some of that. So one of the things we did was we found a lot of people just registering organizations, fake organizations. So we said, okay, all organizations have to be legally registered entities in our region in order to receive resources, and to actually get into the database and receive resources. So that was one of our ways of obtaining accurate data right up at the front, first step, basically. Organizations that are requesting services and resources have to be vetted every 12 months. So we actually do that. We mark it in our database, and if we see an org come in within 12 months, they don't have to be revetted. But if they come in after that 12-month mark, we will revet them. And then service requests are only accepted from the registered points of contact, so we know who we're dealing with. As far as the contract goes, the registration services agreement, there's a couple of sections that mention accurate data in one way or the other. 1C talks about the organizations receiving service having to comply with all policies. So if there's a policy about accurate Whois, they would have to comply with that. The more these participate, we want your opinions. Okay, so this is actually looking at direct and indirect POC validation stats. This is part of that annual POC validation. Who's actually validating, who's not? And this looks at it from a direct and indirect perspective. So direct POCs have received resources from ARIN directly or from an ARIN predecessor registry. And indirect POCs are customer reassignments. So in purple, we have almost 51,000 total direct POCs in ARIN's database. And when you look at how many of them have been validated or unvalidated, remain unvalidated, 56% of them are validated, and 44% of them are unvalidated. And for organizations who have a direct relationship with ARIN, that number isn't very encouraging, really. I would have expected more. So when you look down at the total indirect POCs, we've divided that into 3 different categories. And there's 693,000 total indirect POCs. These are the customer reassignments. About 149,000 of them, or 22% of them, have been validated. 221,000 basically are unvalidated, or 32% of them are unvalidated. And then 46% of them are orphaned. And just so that you know, orphaned POCs do not receive the annual POC validation message because they aren't tied to a resource. No one should need to contact them. We left them out. It would just have been a mess with them. So we leave them out of the annual POC validation. So really the numbers to look at are the validated, unvalidated, 22% and 32%. So that's POC validation. And then I tried to pull in some legacy data to see whether legacy networks are actually updating their points of contact. And this is actually an encouraging slide. I always say that when I do this. In purple, we've got almost 28,000 total ARIN issued V4 networks. Over 25,000 of them, or 93%, have at least one validated POC associated with their resource. And that's really good. And only 7%, or just about 2,000, have no validated POC at all on their resource. But I mean, that's sort of to be expected, I think. That's not shocking. But when you look down at the bottom, there's almost 25,000 total legacy networks. Almost 50% of the networks registered in ARIN's database are legacy. Almost 12,000 of them have at least one validated point of contact. That's 47%. For a legacy network, that's pretty high. And then we've got 13,000, or 53%, that have no validated point of contact. So legacy records are updating their points of contact. It's very obvious from looking at this. So I find that encouraging. So what else can ARIN do to obtain or maintain accurate data? I told you about what we are doing currently. These are some things that I put into my paper recommendations I made to John, just a few of them. There's more, but just food for thought in this one. So possible staff actions. And this one, actually, this first one is a good one, and probably one that we will be doing soon. I've been working with FSD and RSD. Anytime our staff is working with a customer directly via the phone or in a face-to-face, like at the ARIN help desk or at an NANOG help desk, I would like them to add one step toward the end to just say, oh, can we take a look at your POC and org information? Let's just walk through it. I will help you. I'm here on the phone. I can help you update it in 2 minutes or less. So I just think that would be a good way to just start getting people, to realize what they need to be doing. And we'll help them, so that's good. As part of the annual POC validation policy, ARIN is to produce a report called Resources with No Validated POCs. And the report is available to people who are willing to sign the bulk Whois, comply with the bulk Whois policy. And basically, you have to sign a terms of service and to get access to the data. So this report lists the resources that have no validated POC. And I thought, if we're going to start auditing, or if we're going to start being proactive, maybe this is the place to start with, because we know that these resources have no validated POC. So let's try to track them down and see what we can find, see if we can get this updated. So this would be sort of a mini auditing procedure, proactive step. One of the things we're definitely doing, and been talking to Susan and our whole team about providing more training to the community, and I'd like to add in, we already train on IPv6 and how to use ARIN services and DNSSEC and all those things, but I want to add data accuracy requirements in there. I want to tell people why it's important. I did a presentation at NANOG about a year and a half ago, and I talked about why it's important and about hijackings and how it works and what people need to do. And people were extremely interested, particularly those with legacy space, because they don't really understand that they could be hijacked, and they don't understand how easy it is to come into ARIN and update their records. So, we're going to go and do some outreach in that area. And we're going to do webinars, blogs, direct outreach, website enhancements, documentation, short videos and visuals, publications, etc. So we're definitely going to make a push in that area to talk about Whois Accuracy. And The last one is kind of the hard one because that would require resources. We could develop a sort of a proactive auditing procedure that targets all organizations with direct resources from ARIN, and staff could sort of start conducting ongoing outreach to direct customers to do the verification. So that's the hard one though. We definitely need some additional resources for that. So those were all possible staff actions, but what else might be done to obtain and maintain accurate Whois data that's outside of staff's purview? Well, one thing could happen is someone could strengthen the terms and conditions of the registration services agreement. Right now, it's pretty. It says you need to have accurate data, but it doesn't have any kind of a repercussion for not doing so, and so ARIN staff doesn't have a lot to go by with this. So we could clearly highlight the requirements for accurate data at all times and add repercussions for not maintaining that accurate data. That's just one thing I thought about. You could create new policy and require Whois data to be updated and accurate at all times. We'll be discussing a couple of Whois accuracy policies this afternoon, so maybe we're heading in that direction. The more extreme one is to introduce a new federal law. If it goes outside of our internet community bottom-up process, it could go right to the government, and a new law could be created that requires ISPs to provide and maintain updated and accurate contact information at all times for themselves and their customers. And that would be a very different way of doing business for all of us. If we start having government policies, there may be more. So that is definitely the extreme measure. So in summary, just want to highlight a couple of things I talked about, sort of the takeaways. Accurate Whois data is vital to the operation of the internet for many reasons. We do know that some amount of it is inaccurate today, and it could get worse going forward. Inaccurate data, we know this, can affect a network operator's ability to quickly fix operational and/or abuse issues, and accurate data contributes to the overall safety and stability of the internet. So staff continues to work on ways to improve data accuracy and integrity, but we would actually like to hear feedback from the community on other ways we can attack this problem. We have an ARIN consultation and suggestion process. You could use that if you have some good ideas. We would love to review them as a team. If you want to just informally introduce, have an idea, you could send it to me, and I could, we could talk about it with our management team. But there are ways to get your ideas and feedback to us, and we are very interested in hearing it. So that is all I have. It's my last slide. I didn't do a questions or a thank you slide, but I do thank you.
And orphaned.
Yeah, we do the.
Are there no direct orphaned POCs, or?
It's negligible,
Okay.
and I didn't include it in there. I just put it in one basket. 99.9% are.
Are
Yeah.
indirect?
Yes.
Okay, thank
Yes.
you.
Okay.
Andrew Dahl, CrowdStrike. The slides where you had legacy, you had one valid POC in an organization. Did you have, I'm trying to remember on the direct resources, did you have the same statistic for that, or did you have a different statistic?
It was the same, I think. I gotta go back.
So you have there,
Oops, sorry. This
that's
one on the legacy?
at least one validated
Yes.
POC
Yes.
at the bottom, right? And then for direct resources, is that the same
Yes.
metric?
It's the
Can
same
you
metric.
Go back a slide.
Oh.
So that's the same metric. Is that true or not true?
No, we were looking at different things. This is just total number of validated POCs that are directs.
So I would like to know what number of orgs have at least one validated POC, direct orgs.
So in other words, this slide kind of, but for
suggestions. First one I think I made previous meeting is one of the tools that you have at your disposition that I would like to bring forward is to say whenever there's a new policy being discussed, to have a section in it to say does it improve the accuracy of the data or not. And some are favor policies that actually do improve the quality of the registration. So that's my suggestion number one. And suggestion number two is you were talking about maybe deleting some of the old orphaned parks. I would suggest if you do that to archive them
We would.
so that if we want to do some research later on, they will be available.
We would do that, absolutely. We
Thank you.
archive. Yep. And
Are you aware of any push among legislators in the United States, in the ARIN region, Canada, Caribbean, to require and pass laws? Are you aware of anything that is a rumbling headed that direction? Secondly, are you aware of any of the other regions like RIPE that also are trying to pass legislation forcing this type of registry accuracy? Those are the first two questions, and I'll let you answer that.
Yeah, those are actually my questions. So as it turns out, ARIN does pay. Is available in the internet community. On the other hand, that's how long that continues to work will obviously be based on success rate.
Sure.
So there's no way to forecast. There's certainly a lot of interest in the topic. We've seen in the last 2 years a remarkable amount of discussion among governments about registry accuracy, but right now, per se, no legislative activities that I can see.
Okay. The last question is the goal of getting accurate data something that can be crowdsourced with certain types of bounties even, and use a larger internet community to try to find who these people are who own this?
So we're the staff here. We do what you tell us to do, including if you tell us set up a crowdsource method and give bounties, we will set that up. But it's certainly an interesting possibility.
Okay.
At the end of the day, it's what you guys want to direct us to do.
Okay.
I go to Kevin. Yeah.
Ken Bloomberg, The Wire. Thank you, Leslie, for this data. It's refreshing to see it. Two things. One, if you go back to the 93% have been validated of resources that are under RSA, correct?
Wrong place. Yeah.
A suggestion in that one is we don't take your money if you're not validated, and you go from 93 to 100%. Because everybody there is paying something every single year. For to not be validated means that you're taking money from somebody who you have no idea who they are. So just you can do with it what you want. It's just a suggestion. And I just wanted to confirm, with the orphans, that data is still relevant to the who was, because without it,
Right.
you wouldn't be able to. So it's not that it's orphaned and not useful, it's orphaned and historically relevant data.
And would be archived if we deleted it.
So my question statistically is how much of the current RSA, so that 93%, do you see changing year over year? And is that then a benchmark to say if we see 20% of the orgs or the POCs are changing year in and year out, that over a 10-year period, data will become more stale, more stale, more stale. In the regular white pages phone book that they used to have, the rule of thumb was 15% a year would change. The entire book would change 15%. What sort of numbers are you seeing year over year in terms of the percentage of change?
This is the first year we've measured
Yeah, it's really the first year we've measured, but it's a good thing to keep as a metric, and we'll
Right.
we'll guard that one and look at it for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, Rob.
Rob Seastrom, Newstar and ARIN AC. Speaking of metrics, I suspect that the vast majority of the validated POCs come from clicking on links in email that we have sent out to people. So that means that we have a 47% success rate with that campaign. Are we collecting information if we are contacted out of band, some other way, on what campaign led people to validate their POC? It would be very interesting, since you have different ideas for outreach, to figure out which ones are actually getting results versus which ones, I mean, for instance, I'm going to pick on this just because it's something that popped into my mind. We have no idea how many people registered IPv6 space or updated a POC or whatever based on the comic books we did several years ago. We don't know what the results from that are. And it would be interesting to collect that data so that we could.
At present, we don't distinguish why or the exact method how. And it's a little complicated because, for example, clicking on email links, we actually just really enabled recently in the way that makes it as usable as possible. In the past, it was a reminder for you to go in and use ARIN Online to update your POC. So there's how did you update? Well, someone updated their POC with ARIN Online, which isn't the
and you
same
don't know
as
why.
why
Right.
did they update,
Right,
okay?
right.
They literally may have updated in the past because they got an email, but it's completely disassociated. So there's the method that they use to do the update, and then there's the driver. I'm not sure we can tease out the former. May not be possible.
I suspect it's not possible to get complete data on that, but any data that you might be able to get could inform where we put future resources. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Back, Mike.
It's good morning, Roxanne John here.
We do have some governments who come to us and ask about the registration records in their region. And they're all public. I mean, you can go to the Whois database, but we also are pretty good at pulling subsets. So if you want a subset of records for a particular country in your government, we're happy to generate those, and we can show you which ones have been updated and which ones haven't. All you need to do is ask. We have Kathy Handley handles our government affairs group. She's capable of being the liaison for all those efforts. So if you need information about the registrations in a particular country and you're the government minister there, please reach out to us. We can provide you a list of them and a summary about what their status is. What you do with that is sort of your decision. Go ahead. Follow up?
Yes, I have a follow-up because I'm wondering how proactive can the approach be? Because sometimes the government may not see the need until there's some hacking or some major disaster. And you may want to avoid that. You may want to have some system in place where they are being informed, you know, and they can take action before there are disasters.
Right. So, and that's something that this community should discuss. We can engage in, when you talk about the possible options to improve things, one option is to go to the governments and say, here's the registrations in your region and here's the accuracy of them, and what do you think about that? We're happy to do that, but as you know, ARIN wouldn't initiate something like that unless you asked us to, and that's pretty important because we don't want to initiate directions that the community hasn't told us to initiate, but we have the capability and we certainly have the information.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions for Leslie?
Thank you very much
Thank-
for your time.